Good evening and welcome to the Town of Carmel Town Board. It is Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022. This is a voting meeting. We have a public hearing, 2 items on that about the master plan and zoning. We're going to begin with a roll call attendance, please.
Councilman Baranowski. Here. Councilman Lombardi.
Aye. Here.
Councilwoman McDonough is absent. Councilman Channel.
Here.
And Supervisor Kazari.
Here. Frank, you want to do the pledge?
Sure.
If everyone would please rise and face the flag.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just ask that we remain standing for a moment of silence to remember those men and women who are fighting for our freedom. Provide us with the blanket of freedom that we live under each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you. So if our town clerk, Ann Spofford, would please read the first public notice?
Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Carmel will conduct a public hearing at the Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, Mahopac, New York, 10541 on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022, at 7:00 p.m. or soon thereafter that evening as possible, on a proposed local law which is proposing multiple amendments to Chapter 156 of the Code of the Town of Carmel entitled Zoning. Copies of the full text of the proposed local law are available in the lobby at Town Hall from the Town Clerk's office during normal business hours, as well as on the Town of Carmel's website at www.ci.carmel.my.us. At said public hearing, all interested persons shall be heard on the subject thereof. The Town Board will make every effort to assure that the public hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Anyone requiring special assistance and/or reasonable accommodations should contact the Town Clerk. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Carmel, Ann Spofford, Town Clerk.
Thank you. So before we begin with the public hearing and have the vote to open it, I just want to let everybody know we're not voting, we're not closing this public hearing. They'll be open for comment. People can write in and make comments to the board, and we will be having more public hearings. And as you digest and read, this is quite a big document. So as you read it and you become aware of questions that you may have, you'll be able to bring them to the board. Can I get a motion to open
So
the
moved.
public hearing? Second. Seconded by both Councilman Channel and Councilman Baranowski. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So the public hearing is open. We would move that our representative from Nelson Pope will do a PowerPoint, and then we'll go to public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the public. My name is Bonnie Franson. I am a partner with Nelson Pope and Voorhees. We are an environmental planning and consulting firm, and we have been retained by the town to assist them in the preparation of a comprehensive plan update and zoning amendments to effectuate the recommendations of the comprehensive plan update. So I wanted to give an overview of where we are in the process, give you a little bit of background on the documents. They are on the town's website and available for review as required by law. So this effort has been a team effort. The team has consisted of our firm, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, and there was a comprehensive plan advisory committee that we worked with that represented various staff, board members, residents, the Chamber of Commerce, and other departmental individuals so that they could all provide input into this effort and help guide the process. So some of this information was presented at webinars that we held. This all happened during the heart of COVID. So some of this was via Zoom, but in terms of if you didn't have a chance to go to the webinar, this is the process. We established the Comprehensive Plan Advisory Group, reviewed your 2000 comprehensive plan, which 20 years old, so it is dated and it needed reworking. We developed a community survey which was administered to town residents and stakeholders, and just so you know, the responses were one of the largest we had ever received in any of our communities, so there was really good input and feedback from the community at large. We analyzed existing conditions, and that was intended to provide a baseline of where is the town now before we could then document where should the town head. There was public participation. Again, we were a little challenged in the beginning, but we did have a survey, which was available online so that everybody could participate when it was convenient to them. We had a public workshop, and that was all in accordance with COVID guidance at the time, with our masks and distancing, et cetera. And then we had 2 webinars to get further input into the creation of the comprehensive plan. We've identified through that process goals, objectives, and recommendations, and then ultimately they were embodied within a draft comprehensive plan. Draft plan update was presented and provided to the town board, and we are now at the point where its town board holds a public hearing and conducts environmental review both on the plan as well as the zoning amendments that we've drafted. So we're essentially at step 9. We're very close to the end. And again, this is a point in the process where there's significant public input to make sure that, again, you have an opportunity to finally vet the documents before they get adopted by the town board. So real quick, for those who do not know what a comprehensive plan is, as per New York State town law, it is a document that guides immediate and long-range growth, protection, enhancement, and development in a town. It assesses the issues and the opportunities confronting the town of Carmel, and then it sets a vision, goals, and policies for preservation and growth for the next 10 to 20 years. So why is a comprehensive plan important? Why is it created? All town land use regulations must be in accordance with an adopted comprehensive plan as required by New York State town law. So once this is adopted, the zoning regulations have to be consistent with the plan. It's also very proactive versus reactive. The town anticipates and builds upon and thinks about its future, and it's a path and a guide for how to get there. And it can be used as a tool to attract investment and support future funding opportunities. For those of you who have prepared grants and submitted projects to the regional economic development councils, having projects, having comprehensive plans supporting these projects goes a long way in helping with your grant application. So comprehensive plan, basic questions, essentially where are we now? Those are the existing conditions. Where are we going? So what are the issues and opportunities confronting the town? Where do we want to be? And again, we determine that through public input, through survey, webinars, and workshop, and then how do we get there? And that's through the comprehensive plan update and the zoning amendments. So this is just the cover of the town of Carmel's draft comprehensive plan, 2022 to 2035. And the framework of it is essentially there's a vision statement, and the vision is an aspirational statement as to how the town wants to grow, how it wants to evolve. And that vision statement is supported by a series of goals and then objectives, which are the recommendations of how to implement the goals and vision statement. So during the process, and this is a photo from our workshop where people had the opportunity to react to words, to phrases, to ideas about what is the town of Carmel, this vision for the town of Carmel came out of the process. So the draft vision in the document is the town of Carmel is a community defined by the reservoirs and lakes which dominate the landscape and its 2 historic lakefront hamlets, Mahopac, and Carmel. Town has grown to accommodate a diversity of residential neighborhoods served by excellent schools, parks, and expanding rail trail and other major public services. Growth has been balanced with the protection of the community's natural resources and scenic beauty. Town of Carmel is where the countryside begins. Residents benefit from living in a semi-rural atmosphere while still being part of the bustling New York metropolitan region and its employment centers. In the next 10 to 20 years, the town will continue to evolve to be an attractive place to live, work, and play, with socially vibrant downtowns with traditionally designed main streets, interconnected by trails and sidewalks, a mixture of commercial uses, more in-town employment opportunities, and a range of housing types that meet the needs of all age groups, young adults, families, and the elderly. Downtown will feature restaurants, eateries, cultural facilities, and small businesses, recreational connections to the lakefronts, and will be a destination for community gatherings and events. So that's essentially the vision for the town. So when you look at the document, the comprehensive plan, you'll see that there are a series of topics or subject areas, and we have summarized in a matrix for each of those topics what the goal is and what the various objectives are. And we also indicate whether they're to be implemented in the short term, medium term, long term, or if it's just an ongoing, continuing objective to pursue. So you could see here as an example, under land use and zoning, allow development in a pattern consistent with the conceptual land use plan, which is in the document and I'll speak to. And so the very first goal, objective 1.1 is revitalize the Mahopac and Carmel downtowns. So again, there are a series of topic areas that we will, that are expressed in the comprehensive plan. Another element of the comprehensive plan update is land patterns, and that becomes the conceptual land use framework. So we acknowledge that the town is a series of hamlets, a series of lake neighborhoods, an area that we call the kind of the Ridge and Valley neighborhoods, which is really the surrounding, more bucolic area that is low density, open space within the town. And then that becomes the framework for ultimately the zoning recommendations. So this is a larger image of that map that I provided. And again, you could see the commercial quarters, downtown areas, potential economic development areas, the open space and recreation areas, obviously your surface waters, and we also indicate what's DEC and what's other New York State lands. So from the comprehensive plan update, we then launched into zoning amendments. So essentially, existing conditions was really gathered during 2020, and then 2020 to 2021, the plan was being prepared, and then 2021, now into 2022, was the zoning amendments were prepared, and it was a very large overhaul. So the zoning amendments consist of both text and maps. And the language here is from New York State Town Law. Regulation shall be made in accordance with the comprehensive plan and designed to lessen congestion in the streets, promote health and general welfare, avoid undue concentration of population, and encourage the most appropriate use of land throughout the municipality. So that's a series of goals or objectives that are set forth in New York State Town Law. That's not all of them, but those are, examples. And then it also says the town may divide the town into districts, which are referred to as zoning districts, of such number, shape, and area as best suited to carry out the purposes of the zoning, which districts regulate and restrict the construction and use of buildings, structures, and land. So again, once you have your pattern that you want to pursue, then you develop the zoning amendments and the map to effectuate the plan. So in terms of zoning text, and I would direct you online with the public hearing notices, there is a summary that was prepared that highlights many of the changes that have been made to the zoning at this point. But briefly, one of the major elements of the zoning text to update was to update the procedures. It was, kind of some of the language and some of the regulations were cobbled together with different processes, some not really knowing who actually approves conditional uses or special use permits or having procedures for it. The site plan procedures weren't up to date. So cluster regulations, which is a type of subdivision regulation, those were not up to date. So much of this, hearings, zoning board of appeals, when they issue variances, the criteria they have to adhere to, all of this was updated, because that's pretty essential for your land use regulations. Then other updates, and these are just highlights, they're certainly not all of them. Accessory apartment regulations have been updated. We created manufactured home park regulations. You have them, but we don't believe there were regulations for them. Added affordable housing regulations. So to promote affordability in housing, there's now a requirement that if you have 50 or more dwelling units or lots, a provision has to be provided for affordable housing. You also get an incentive for doing so. And that's just to ensure that, again, you keep a diversity of housing in the community. And in terms of priorities go to town volunteers, your police, your fire. There's the ability to prioritize who gets first dibs, if you will, on those dwelling units. We added economic uses with appropriate regulations. Much of your town right now is zoned rural, basically residential, 3-acre zoning, and there's a lot of land in the town which could accommodate alternative uses with the appropriate setbacks, large lots, et cetera. And other areas can accommodate other uses. So just as examples, we put in regulations for hotels and boutique hotels being smaller types of hotels, resorts, animal kennels, animal hospitals, allowing restaurants in more areas of the town. And again, those are just examples. We did add what we'll call sustainability regulations. So we added regulations for solar facilities, not the large-scale solar facilities, but if someone wants to have a ground-mounted solar panels in their yard or have them rooftop, we have regulations for that. Battery storage, not large-scale battery storage, but battery storage, someone has an electrical vehicle and they want to be able to charge. So there are requirements for that. As well as electrical vehicle charging stations, allowing that to be implemented in development throughout the town to install that. There are now design guidelines specifically for the hamlets as part of a design overlay. There are now design standards for lighting, landscaping, parking that are flexible. Lighting is focused on dark sky controls, ensuring that you don't have overly bright areas, unnecessarily bright. Landscaping is about beautifying the town and making sure that when you're traveling along 6 or traveling along the corridors, that the aesthetics, that it's an attractive area, which only helps bolster property values. And then parking being flexible with parking, especially in hamlet areas where if there's shared parking, or if you really don't need all the parking, there's the ability for some options to reduce that. And then another example of changes was, updating and having clearing and filling activities controlled in the town. In terms of the zoning map, just as a background, this is the existing zoning map, and essentially there are really only 3, maybe 4 zones in the entire town. One being the residential zone, which I mentioned was 3-acre zoning and covers practically all of Carmel. Then you have a commercial zone, which all the same uses are allowed in, whether it's in your hamlet centers or whether it's on a major commercial corridor, it's one zone allowing all the same things. And then you had this Commerce Business Park, which is up in the hamlet of Carmel, but one of the issues there is that it also allowed residential uses. And so land that was intended to be for economic development and commerce also could be developed with residential uses. So we looked at the land patterns among the other tasks of the existing conditions analysis, looked at land use patterns, looked at the various uses in the town. Then, consistent with the vision and the goals and objectives, we've come up with zoning to further refine the land use pattern for the community. So in general, the town's land use pattern is much more fine-grained and diverse than reflected in the current zoning map. So for example, if you allow one commercial zone and that commercial zone allows automotive-related uses, you don't necessarily want them in your hamlet because they, by virtue of the way that they are designed, don't necessarily, or they're not necessarily consistent with a pedestrian-oriented downtown. So we started to differentiate commercial areas based on the intent of these various areas of the town. There's still the need to preserve environmentally sensitive lands as open space and low-density residential use, so we did retain the 3-acre zoning in the areas that were appropriate. However, 3 acres is very large, and if you're trying to support your hamlets, if you're trying to attract people to the town to evolve, you need more than just 3-acre zoning. And so we did create a new residential zoning district that allows higher density residential development on the periphery of the hamlets. It's 1-acre zoning. So in the grand scheme of things, it's not high density, it's just allowing homes to be built on smaller properties than 3 acres. Then in terms of the land use pattern, the goal is to reinforce the hamlets as the mixed use centers for the town. So there we do allow the combination of commercial as well as multifamily uses and apartments above retail uses. And then we're allowing a hierarchy of commercial uses along the corridor because it's not one size fits all. And then we also built into the zoning some flexibility for economic development opportunities through creation of something called the floating zone, which I'll describe in a moment. So this is the proposed zoning map, and we've essentially went from 3 or 4 zoning districts to about 15. And this is available for review on the website. So in terms of residential and the zoning map and the zoning districts, again, we differentiate the hamlets from other areas of town. We allow mixed-use development and multifamily uses within the hamlets, and that multifamily will support activities and activate the hamlets. We create these residential zoning districts which reflect the diversity of existing housing. So we have the open space residential, which is still the 3-acre zoning. We have neighborhood residential now, which is 1-acre zoning. And then the town has numerous senior multifamily residential neighborhoods, and we've actually created a zone for them so that they are conforming within their own zoning district. There is now a manufactured home park district, which does encompass the existing manufactured home parks in the town and to provide regulations because some of the land areas are sufficient to allow expansions and they should be guided by regulations. There's also what we call a hospital residential zoning district, which is, I don't believe the existing zoning actually allows hospitals. And so we added this zone to explicitly allow hospitals, but to also allow medical offices and other uses that are complementing the hospital. It also allows residential because there's a series of residential developments that are in and around the hospital, that even those that have been recently approved. So that encompasses that area. In terms of commercial uses, again, we created commercial zoning districts which reflect the diversity of commercial uses along the major transportation corridors. And it's like a hierarchy. There's a neighborhood business district, which is more your local retail type uses, personal service uses. There's a corridor business, and that's where you get more into some automotive-related commercial uses. There's the town center commercial zoning district, which is for where we have the major shopping centers and you have some drive-throughs, those kinds of commercial uses, not neighborhood scale, but it's called town center because the market is more of a town area. And then we did retain the business park zone. It's reconfigured to exclude residential developments, and it now only allows non-residential uses, which was the intent. Some special zones, there is a conservation zone, and that conservation zone really encompasses all the DEP lands, the DEC lands, anything that's state-owned, and any of the parks within the town, whether they're county or local. So there's one conservation zone. There is a zone for property that's down by Baldwin Place off of Route 6, planned recreation destination. It has uses that are intended to be tourist activity centers, recreation, complexes, theaters, things of that nature. But it also allows something called the planned mixed-use development. And that planned mixed-use development would be allowed, it would have to be by approval of the town board. And what it allows for is the creation of a new neighborhood, a mixed-use neighborhood that has both commercial and residential uses, a mix of residential uses, and it would require that if someone does want to pursue this type of development, they have to time and build the commercial along with the residential, so we ensure that it's mixed. And then lastly, another special, oh, sorry, I missed the design overlay. The design overlay are standards for construction and development of a certain magnitude within the hamlet areas to ensure that when they're revitalized, buildings are refurbished, that there's an opportunity to provide input and get it to fit within the character of the hamlets. Economic development floating zone, it's a zone that has not landed, but a potential applicant could petition for this economic development floating zone. They would make a presentation to the town board, and it's essentially to allow uses that we can't even anticipate at this point, but that they could have very beneficial economic benefits, whether it's job creation, rateable base. You know, it's the, you know, not the people are building right now big office campuses, but it's the ability to allow for non-residential development that's a benefit to the town and to land it through this floating zone. And it's, again, just a flexible mechanism to encourage economic development. So in terms of the next steps, that's a brief overview. Again, there's a lot to the document, subject to town board review at this point, subject to public input. It'll be further refined. So there'll be revisions to the draft documents, both the comp plan and the zoning regulations. We will complete the required environmental review process, which has to be completed prior to adoption. This does have to go to Putnam County Planning as a referral. They have their comments on it. That's mandatory when you do these documents. And then ultimately, when the town board is satisfied with the documents, they will adopt them, and that will become the new zoning regulations and the comp plan guiding the town. So this is an opportunity, the public hearing, to provide public comment. And the town board will, of course, consider these comments and amend as necessary the documents. And just for the benefit of the public who may be watching or those in the audience, again, this is from the town's webpage. You'll see the menu on the left-hand side, and I just highlighted here where you can find the existing conditions report, the draft comprehensive plan, and the draft zoning code, which has been up there for some time. But I do want to let people know that it is there. Again, we thank you in advance for your comments, and I do have links here if we post this on the web, easy way to get to the 3 reports that I just described. So with that, I will turn it back over to the town board. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Right now is, yeah, the first thing is the zoning comments. Yeah. Mr. Butler? So just 3 minutes, please?
No, I don't think so. No, you're going to
Yeah.
limit us to 3 minutes?
Yeah,
You are?
yeah.
Based on what?
What do you have?
Whoa, are you making up rules? We have, so is this the public hearing on the zoning amendment? Yes.
Yeah.
So the
Zoning's
zoning
first.
amendment document is
244
244 pages long, and you're going to limit me to 3 minutes? You're suppressing the public. This is outrageous.
I'm not suppressing you if you would
You're
like to.
suppressing the public. Okay, we have, number one, so my name is John Butler. I live in the hamlet of Carmel. I've lived there for 38 years.
Yes.
Is this the public hearing on the zoning? Which public hearing?
This is the zoning is first.
Zoning is first. So we have a 244-page document. We have a 2-page document, maybe 3. No, 2-page document that's entitled Town of Carmel 2022's Draft Zoning Amendments Highlights. And this will be a governing document, meaning the 244-page zoning regulations, for the next 13 years. There's no reference in any of these highlights to the actual sections of the zoning code. There's no summary of the changes to the zoning code, be it deletions, additions, or otherwise. So I have a question. I don't know, are we allowed to ask questions? So the first bullet point, which section of the new zoning draft code does that refer to? Anyone got an answer? Nope. How about the next one? Or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth, or the sixth, or the
Do
seventh,
you have
and the eighth?
subsequent, do you have questions about, do you
Yeah,
have
I have a
comments about
question.
it?
Where do I go in the draft zoning document
There's this.
to
this
actually
whole-
see where
there's-
these quote-unquote highlights are actually included, reflected, reported, written in the new zone?
You could have my copy of the draft
So
and
it's
go
up to
through it.
me, it's up to a resident and all the other 30,000 plus residents of the town of Carmel to go into a 244-page document about zoning in order for us to understand and to see exactly what is being proposed, what's presented, what's in there. Is that correct?
How would you suggest doing it, sir?
I don't have any suggestions. You guys sit up there, you get paid. I'm just a resident. All I do is live here.
Okay.
Okay, so now I guess we're all supposed to become zoning professionals and/or lawyers and/or environmental consultants and review 244-page document, glean from that document what's been added, glean from that document what's been deleted, and do an analysis and review. Guess what? She gets paid to do that, not me. I paid her and her firm to do that. And it's your responsibility as a town board to hold the professionals we paid accountable to do a professional presentation of the documentation, the data, and everything else that we're talking about here. Some of the stuff in these potential zoning revisions change the entire character and nature of this town. This is an urbanization of this town. This is rife with progressive politics in this presentation. I know you're squinting. Did you read it? Have you read it? Maybe if you read it, you'd understand what I'm saying.
Okay, so, Mr. Butler, that's your 3 minutes. Thank you very much for your
Yeah,
comments.
and the last point is, are you kidding me? This process has been going on for 2 years. You're holding a public hearing in the middle of the summer.
This isn't our only public hearing. We have to do public hearings. This is going to be open. You could read it. You could,
So there's going to be another public
there's going
hearing.
to be plenty of public
Okay.
comments.
I'm just
and public
fascinated by the
hearings.
fact we're in the middle of the summer, and I'm most fascinated by the fact that the point person, as I understand it, on the
Wait,
town board
sir,
of this
sir,
process is
sir.
Councilperson
Sir.
McDonough, who's not here.
Like
Are you
I-
kidding?
like
Seriously,
I said,
folks?
Your 3 minutes. I'm very sorry, sir.
Yeah, 3 minutes. Where does it say 3 minutes?
I just said
On the
it.
agenda, where does it say 3 minutes?
I just said it.
Oh, so what, okay. So
So,
what you
sir,
says goes,
please-
that's it? There's no process, there's no procedure?
Just,
What you say is
Sir.
the procedure.
thank you. You may
You're
sit
welcome.
down now.
Can I say some more?
No, you can sit down.
Really? What if I don't?
I'm going to turn off the microphone,
Okay.
and if you still don't sit down, then I'll have you removed for
By
disrupting me.
whom? The police?
Yes.
You're going to have me arrested?
I'm not going to have you removed.
Is that true? You're going to have me arrested? Excuse me, that's a question. You're going to have me arrested?
I'm asking you not to disrupt the meeting,
I'm not.
to sit down.
I'm participating in a public hearing.
and I asked you to sit down. Your 3 minutes is up.
But
If you
3
want-
minutes?
If you'd like to disrupt the
Where
meeting.
is the 3-minute rule on the agenda? Where is it? It's usually on the agenda of all the other town board meetings. It's not on this one, is it?
Thank you very much.
Oh, excuse me, where is the 3-minute rule stated on the agenda?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sit,
I'm not done.
you're done. Sit down, please.
Really?
Yeah? Yes. But we're going to have another public hearing in a little bit, and you can get up for 3 more minutes.
Wow.
Please sit down.
This is amazing. Holy smokes, I just got back from Europe. I thought that was bad. This is worse.
Okay, so. Oh, Larry Zacks.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to keep it light. We've been working with Bonnie and the Chamber of Commerce and this master plan for 5 years now. They've been working on it a couple of years. It's an extremely complicated document. I've sat and tried to read and understand it. It's prepared by specialists. It's very well thought out. And congratulations, it's a great job. You went to many different towns, and we suggested some of the more beautiful towns. Much of this was taken from them. Much of it is a bit progressive, and there are many big changes. And a summary would have been wonderful because it's complicated, the changing in zoning. I'm just here to basically say we need more parking downtown. If the area is to improve, restaurants, cafes are going to come. We need more parking downtown. We need more sidewalks. The zoning in this area to actually grow is extremely difficult because we do not have water and sewer. So we will not see rampant construction. We will see large projects from large developers backed by very powerful lawyers. The other developments will be minor. But back to what we really want to see downtown is wider sidewalks, sidewalks running on 6N for maybe a mile. Also, proper lighting, more parking. There's another parking area available right off Senior Avenue that they are willing to lease the town. That has been brought up. They don't have to buy it. And the other thing that was mentioned besides parking is that we possibly remove the fountain in the downtown chamber and enlarge that parking there. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Subarez, can I just ask a question?
Yes.
It was my understanding that tonight was just going to be basically an overview of this, correct?
Yes.
All right, so when we get into the different specifics, the professionals will be coming back to us and to the public and going through pretty much bullet point by bullet point, everything that was highlighted. Am I accurate or not accurate?
Oh, yeah, that would be correct. Yes.
Okay, so then this is a long way, this is just general overview.
Yeah.
And again, this hasn't been approved by, this is what's been presented to us by the consultant and the committee that had been working on this for the last several years.
Correct.
So
And
we
as
have
I
a
said
lo-
in the opening, this isn't the end. You can send your written comments, and yes. this
It's all
is-
subject to change.
Yeah. So, thank you. You were correct.
And it's not necessarily anything that the particular board members wholeheartedly agree with, or there's going to be changes made.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to understand myself. And I'm sure you'll be coming back to go over the zoning highlights and the zoning changes that Mr. Butler had referred to. And I'm sure, not just Mr. Butler, but I'm sure many people want to see what those actual changes are, including myself, to see what the impact was.
Yes.
And I have some
This is
other
the
questions.
first step
Correct.
in the
Okay.
process.
And I have some other questions as we go on. But
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. Carl Albano.
Thank you for being here. My name is Carl Albano. I'm a 55-plus year resident of New Hamlet, Carmel, a business owner in town over 45 years. I'm glad to see you put a little bit of mixed use in there. Makes a lot of sense. I'm glad to see that we're going to be attempting to revitalize our towns. One of the things I've always complained about is our ARB. We missed the boat in the past years, and I'm hoping that we develop something that has a real plan with a vision and a picture of what we want to see in the future, because what's happened in the past really didn't cut it. As far as this plan, there's so much to read. 3 minutes, you probably need 3 weeks. What I could just say is I still think we're missing something for our young people. I have 5 children. One of them was going to build on one of my properties, took out a building permit for almost $6,000, and said, "Dad, this doesn't make sense," and she moved out of town. My youngest daughter, same thing, wanted to be here. She's in Connecticut now, a lot of activity over there, and the numbers just work. Lucky they're all still close. And the last one is my son, who decided to move out, and he's living in the basement apartment, because that's about all that's out here. So I do think we really have to try to address those properties with sewer and water that could accommodate our young people. Get the right people, tell them to stay here, because, you know, they're the backbone of our community also. So I'm looking forward to more stuff on this master plan, and I'm glad you're taking more comments and you're not acting on this tonight, because I do think we can go to the next level and improve it. Thank you for your
I
time.
agree, thank you.
Thank you for your
And
comments,
I don't
sir.
think there was ever any plan, Carl, to approve this tonight.
No plan to improve it?
No, to
Approve.
approve it.
Yes.
No, approve it.
No, there's still a lot
No,
more
no.
steps.
You were kidding me, so I'm glad.
No, I was not,
Glad that we know there's more time.
no, approve.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Kim Greco?
Maybe you can hear me. Hi. With all the planning and all the zones and all the businesses that we're going to be making in our district, and, my brother-in-law was killed last year on 6N. Now with this, we're going to have a lot more traffic. That road is very dangerous. I know other roads too. If we're going to have so many people and so many different new businesses and new everything coming into our town, what are we going to do about any of this stuff? There's a lot of things that need to be fixed, especially 6N. I know there's a couple of people that have passed. The road is crazy, and you're going to bring more traffic into that way. You got the restaurant, right there, and that brings a lot of traffic and a lot of parking. So within that zoning, is this going to be part of figuring everything out with all these people coming into the town? And that's, I don't know, but, I'm going to be here a lot to talk on this because
Please.
this is my mission now.
Right,
So-
we agree.
Yes.
Definitely, there's
Thank
some work
you very
needs
much
to
for
be
your
done in
comment.
that area, and that's going to be, I believe, put on one of the work sessions coming up.
And Rick O'Rourke?
Being a short person, I thought I might have to adjust this, but I guess it's okay. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to comment on your zoning draft as well as your comprehensive plan. My name is Richard O'Rourke. I am an attorney with Keenan Bean in White Plains, and I'm here on behalf of Centennial and Toll Brothers. We have an application presently pending before the Planning Board, and I know we have a very short period of time. I, late this afternoon, emailed, I believe, to each of the town board members a comprehensive letter setting forth our comments with respect to the draft zoning, as well as attach certain empirical research that I think would be very valuable, much of which has been incorporated into your draft. One of the things that I just wanted to mention, after having been involved in zoning and land use for over 40 years, I certainly appreciate the thought, concern, and efforts that go into coming up with the draft zoning. The purpose of the public hearing is, notwithstanding those efforts, it's never a perfect document. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, and it wouldn't be in draft. And so I'm here this evening to offer a few comments and some suggestions that I hope will be constructive and would be very helpful to the town. My comments are going to focus specifically on the Centennial property and what is our proposal. What we presently are proposing and what's pending before the zoning, the planning board, is a conforming application. It is a permitted use. The zoning as proposed will make it prohibited. And to be honest with you, I think that by doing so, it's a disservice not only to us, and of course our property rights, but also to serving the community. And what we're proposing, and you will see it in the document that has been sent to all of you, and I'll hand up to Ms. Spofford a hard copy, which we want to have as part of the record, is that we want to preserve the golf course. But at the same time, we want to recognize that the zoning that is proposed is inconsistent with that particular area. And in fact, if you were to take a look at the zoning map that is proposed, you will note that approximately 1,500 linear feet of our property is bordered by the SMR zone, which of course permits multifamily. So when you take a look at that, and what is our suggestion, is you merely take that line that is proposed, you extend it northward to a portion of our property, which is the portion that is the subject of our pending application, and that actually is more consistent with what your zoning should be. That's number one. Number two, the zoning provides for, and I want to make sure I say this correctly, multifamily zoning in the SMR. It also allows for it to occur in the neighborhood residential, which is the other zone that surrounds our property. Yet, our property is being singled out and not being allowed or permitted to proceed with the present application.
So, I'm sorry, that's your 3 minutes.
That's my 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I hope you read my document. It's part of the record, and I look forward to having another 3 minutes at a later point in time. And also, I waive my right to speak at the comprehensive plan. Sounds like we're going to have plenty of other discussions, so thank you very much. Just
Thank
gonna
you for
hand
your
up-
comments.
I'll
Thank
hand up
you.
my hard copy as well as my card, so you have my...
So what do you call that? We're not closing it, so we just moved to, yeah, so if that's the end of comments, if you,
Mr. Supervisor? Mr. Supervisor, may I just clarify? The neighborhood residential zoning district doesn't allow multifamily. It's intended to be single-family. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
thank you.
I didn't hear what you said.
You answered one of my questions. Mike Borelli, longtime resident taxpayer, former free speech councilman. You answered one of my questions, that this will not be closed tonight, that this will be continued for at least 60 days to 90 days,
More than that.
more than that. Okay. And the second thing is, in the printed out pages, why don't we have the 15 zones in print, in color, in this, so a layman can understand it?
Right.
Sorry, just so I understand, when you say in color, in the print
Well,
version,
Online, you have it in color,
yes,
where if you blow it up, you could understand it.
correct.
Anybody that reads this that doesn't work with a computer has no idea what's going in what zone. But the,
Yeah, I mean, conventional zoning, we have the list of all the zones. So I just want to facilitate what you might be looking for so that it's comprehensible if there's an
yeah, if
issue.
we have more public hearings, I'll bring it in next time.
Okay.
Last thing is, at the next public hearing, well, before the next public hearing, what John said is a no-brainer. I mean, you have a simple house deal and attorneys are going back and forth. You see on the contracts what's changed and what's not changed by a yellow highlight or a green highlight.
Yeah, it's a good
There is
suggestion.
no question
Yeah.
about it,
Yep.
that before this town does anything, I want to see the current zoning book with the changes,
The red line
the
version.
red
Yeah,
line, and
yeah.
what was taken out in a different color
Th-
line.
This is what the public comments is for you to
With
suggest the
that, you-
things
you
that we
just-
could
you used
do.
my 3 minutes.
I'm
I'm
good,
trying
I'll
to
give you
get
the
it out in
extra,
3 minutes.
I'll give you the extra 30
The
seconds.
last comment is, when I see that, and I come back for the next public hearing, the public hearing after that,
Mm-hmm.
you might as well have a police officer sitting here
Well, if you've got time to read all of the, I promise I'll give you 20 seconds. You have time to read it all,
Usually
and
you
then...
guys have been really good since I left the board. You don't respond. All of a sudden, you're responding to me. Let me just finish. To say you're going to change the entire town and limit a taxpayer to 3 minutes on it, when there is nobody here but a dozen people, you should be ashamed of yourself. So I am telling you right now, when I come back, I'm prepared to stand there with John and put the handcuffs on, and I'm quite sure that there are 2 or 3 council people that would love to see that again. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. So my point to you, sir, is that there would be more time if everyone had time to read 244 pages and you had substantive comments. But this is just the preliminary. This is the first time. And if people have a lot more to say, I'm sure that there'll be more time to say it. So can I get a motion to, it wouldn't be to close, it's just to hold it over. So can I get a motion to hold over the public hearing?
Do we ask questions as the town board members to Bond?
Yeah.
So I just also wanted to ask a few questions, because I did go through this as best I could today, and some of the concerns that I heard from the public were some of my concerns also. I believe one of the council members had requested like a executive summary of the document that we were looking at today. The original one that I had didn't have any highlights in it, but I did receive one tonight that does have highlights, so I believe those are the changes that Mr. Burley was talking about, so that should be available on the website. Second of all, the 2-page punch list that Mr. Butler spoke about, if we could redo that and indicate what sections you're referring to on here.
Sure.
I kind of had a little bit of a problem going through it myself, but I went through and I noted the ones that they corresponded to, and some of them I was not familiar with, like design overlay. You explained that pretty good to me. So if we could just clarify some of these things so that when we have our next public hearing, when the public comes, they'll have a better understanding of what's going on, and they can have better, more specific questions, and hopefully we'll have a better dialogue between the town board members and the public. Thank you.
Certainly. You know, I'll just add, and you can see up here, this is a PDF. We didn't provide a Word document. We can, so it's searchable. So if you want to search a term, you can.
That'd be great.
But the other thing is this table of contents. We even went to the extreme of trying to get a good table of contents, because there are a whole bunch of special use permit requirements, and you know, we wanted it to be very obvious where things are regulated. So in supplementary use regulations, accessory dwelling units, it's right there. And if you click on accessory dwelling units, it takes you right to that section. So this is a searchable, clickable document to assist people in reviewing it.
On the
Again,
website?
we're trying to facilitate everybody's understanding and wayfinding within the document. It is an overhaul. Your zoning needed an overhaul, especially procedurally. It needed to be organized. That's what's been accomplished. The red line exists, and it can be made public. I would just add that because things were moved around and because of all the changes that were made, you'll see a lot of redlining, and even that sometimes is difficult to read when it's, you know, this wasn't just minor edits. This is new information. The other things in terms of major changes to the town, I was talking about the fact the zoning is fine grain. So we didn't talk about rezoning massive areas of the town to, let's say, commercial. It's that we took a lot of the commercial corridors and we started to look at what are the uses there. And if you don't want something that isn't beneficial to the hamlet as far as the goals, which are to make it walkable and entertaining and revitalized and with lots of people and restaurants and a vitality to it, certain uses we took out. So it's not that it was already zone commercial, but it wasn't, it allowed too much of everything. So this is really trying to refine areas in some part that are already developed and to allow more opportunities for redeveloping some of these areas. We're not trying to go out into the middle of nowhere and create, some new zoning district that allows really intensive development. So I just want to make sure that point is clear. The other point I wanted to make was, we did a map, and we can share it for the benefit of the community. What was amazing to us is that most of your town actually has very small lots. When I say small, they're not really small. They're quarter acre, they're half acre. And the neighborhood residential, which is the newer zoning district, is really atop of those areas. So it's 1 acre zoning for areas that many of them are quarter acre and half acre. There are some miscellaneous scattered parcels that are not developed. And so it allowed an opportunity to do something that was not 3 acre, because 1 acre is going to be close to a quarter acre and half acre lot than a 3 acre lot. It just doesn't make sense. But the other thing we did was, we acknowledged that some of these areas aren't developed because they might be environmentally constrained. So you may have in a neighborhood, it may be vacant because there's a big wetland on it, or there's steep slopes. So when you're calculating density and intensity of land, you actually have to subtract out those areas when you're trying to come up with a development yield, so that it still matches the land's capabilities. So, and again, we can get into this much more detail. It's a lot of new information. I know it's a lot to absorb. We're happy to have the back and forth with the town board and the public to be able to get your hands around the document and the plan.
Okay, thank you. One thing I also was looking for, and I didn't see it, was any zoning for parking, especially in the hamlet areas. That seems to be our biggest challenge. We want to try and make it a walking community where people can come and shop and live there, but there's going to be a problem. If people are living there, they're going to, need places to park their cars. If they're coming to shop or walk around, they're going to need a place to park their vehicles. So there's got to be some type of zoning where we identify parking areas, parking structures, if they're going to be more than one level. I didn't see anything of that in the draft.
Okay. There are parking regulations, newer parking regulations. Again, it's not uncommon in downtowns when you have a bank that closes at 5 and then you have restaurants that you try and do some kind of shared parking. There are many mechanisms, flexible mechanisms to try and gain parking. But a quick comment. So the comprehensive plan is the basis for the zoning, but the comprehensive plan is also your wish list. And it's also in part to get monies, to get grants, to be able to do things that you might need to do, which has nothing to do with the zoning. Zoning isn't going to create a parking lot, but if the comprehensive plan says we need more parking in our downtowns, then you use your comprehensive plan to go out to agencies and to seek grants and to get funds to be able to put a parking lot, let's say, in a particular location. So I want to just emphasize that the comprehensive plan is not just about land use regulations. It's, again, about your wish list, 20 years, what do you need to be successful as a community? Capital improvements, et cetera.
Thank you.
Bonnie,
Bonnie,
go ahead. Okay, thanks. I think it's probably best that you have the red line available
Sure.
for us. And I think as we go forward, each individual section, for example, when we have just the zoning districts, residential, that should be its own public hearing, and we go over the differences with that. But when you did the zoning change analysis, was there any analysis done with regard to the impact that it would have on our school districts?
So that's part of the environmental review. So once we are to a point where, okay, we're going forward with this plan, then we do an environmental analysis, a full environmental assessment form. And that's where we can get into, all right, is this going to allow, in general, the same number of units, or is this likely to, it's an order of magnitude analysis. Is it going to be 100 more housing units, 100 times more housing units?
And that was going to be my next question.
Right.
Was there an analysis done if the zoning that you are, and the committee proposed, what would that do with regard to our housing stock? How many more
Right.
homes would that bring in?
So that's the build-out
And then,
analysis.
in
Yeah.
return, then how many more students would that encumber onto our schools?
Right.
And would that mean that we would need more schools, that the
So-
schools are under,
Yeah,
there's
so-
a whole lot.
Yeah, so one of the things to look at, and for the benefit of the public, is there's a whole existing conditions report, which I had circled, it's on the town website. And we interviewed schools, the fire district, the governmental agencies, and in there you'll see information about enrollment capacity, which is, again, our baseline. So if we're talking about, housing and encouraging housing, that's where we can speak to, well, right now you're actually under capacity, or you have declining enrollment. And that, again, will be part of the environmental review. So yes, the information exists, and we will provide that. But first, we're trying to get to a point where you have a document that you want us to analyze.
But shouldn't we know that and the impact that would have on the schools before we propose any zoning residential changes?
Well, that's there. And we could talk about it more
Yeah.
at a specific meeting to go over this.
Bonnie, can you expand for just a minute or two maybe on the concept of the economic development floating zone?
Sure.
And in particular, are there towns in the lower Hudson Valley nearby perhaps that have adopted that concept? And then where that does exist, where does decision-making authority over those zones sit? Is that typically with the zoning board or the town board?
So the economic development floating zone, the concept of it actually, one of the places that comes to mind right now is the town of Gallatin. It's up in Columbia County. There are a couple of others, but what it is, it's a floating zone, which means you won't see it yet on the map. It hasn't landed. And to be able to land, you have to meet certain criteria that are built in to the regulations. And that process, it's essentially a zoning amendment, and it requires that the town board adopt the floating zone. The reason we do that is because you don't know what's going to be proposed. And it may be something that the board favors after, public input, after reviewing it, after environmental review. But ultimately, you may say, we don't even want to consider it. The reason we create a floating zone is the zoning is entire discretionary at the town board level. If we actually created this concept called economic development use, and it only required planning board, let's say, approval, it's a lot harder to say no to something than when it's a town board discretionary action. So it's a zone, it has to meet certain criteria, a minimum size, has to be along particular roads that can accommodate traffic. And then ultimately, you as a board can say, someone may come in and say, we want to do an office park. And you say, that'd be great. And we looked at all the analysis, we looked at the traffic, makes sense. We'll generate jobs, not looking for, tax breaks, et cetera. But something may come in that's Disneyland. And you may say, this doesn't fit our town at all. So you can, at your discretion, say, sorry, we're not going to entertain it because it's a discretionary zoning action that you do not have to pursue. And again, it was just something that everybody talked about, all these concepts and ideas and people who come in and seem to have great ideas as far as what could happen in the town, like a great use, but there really wasn't a mechanism to be able to consider it, and this creates that mechanism.
And one quick question on that, I noticed you had one stipulation that there's a location map showing generally the land use and ownership of abutting lands within the 500 feet of the property line. So if there's a floating zone, do you delineate where that's going to be and then see what the surrounding properties are? And that zone has to be within, no closer to 500 feet of like a different property, like a residential property?
I missed your first point, so could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So the point was, when you do a floating zone,
Yes.
the floating zone has to have some type of boundaries, some perimeters. So when those perimeters come into play with other land use.
Correct.
Other zones, they
Right.
can be residential. So does that line have to be within 500 feet, say, of a residential property? I don't want to see something like come in, someone has a house, and the next thing, you have as a
Right.
floating zone, and it's within 100 feet of their property line, and there's a parking lot there, or there's some big structure, or there's a warehouse facility, and the trucks are banging, making noises all night long. I just want to make sure that that's written in our
Right.
on our
You
zoning
would
rules, that
consider.
can't happen.
Yeah, you would consider the joining uses, and that's why it's discretionary, because if someone puts it up against a neighborhood, you're going to say, no, it just doesn't work here. But if it's on let's say a 70-acre parcel, and it's taking up 20, and it doesn't have trucks, and it doesn't have those kinds of impacts, then you could say, yes, we support this, we're going to zone it, you establish parameters for it, and then, don't forget, and then it goes off to the planning board still for site plan and detailed plan review. And all of this still has to fit within your other regulations, such as DEP regulations. It still has to be able to be served by sewer. So there's much that comes into play. But again, it's just a concept where the potential exists for someone to petition, but it's entirely in the town board's discretion.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we just do a motion to open the other public hearing then?
No, we didn't yet.
Yeah, I never got a motion on that. So anybody a motion to keep this open?
Yeah, so moved.
Second?
Second.
Seconded by Shannon, all in favor? Aye. So now, the second public hearing. If our town clerk could read that one. Please.
Notice is hereby given that the town board of the town of Carmel will conduct a public hearing at the Town Hall, 60 McAlpin Avenue, Mahopac, New York, 10541, on Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022, at 7:00 p.m. or soon thereafter that evening as possible, pursuant to New York State Town Law, Section 272-A and Section 272-A6 on the draft comprehensive plan being proposed in and for the town of Carmel. Copies of the full text of the draft comprehensive plan are available in the lobby at Town Hall, from the town clerk's office during normal business hours, as well as on the Town of Carmel's website at www.ci.carmel.ny.us. At said public hearing, all interested persons shall be heard on the subject thereof. The town board will make every effort to assure that the public hearing is accessible to persons with disabilities. Anyone requiring special assistance and/or reasonable accommodations should contact the town clerk. By order of the town board of the town of Carmel, Ann Spofford, town clerk.
Thank you. Can we get a motion to open the
So
public
moved.
hearing? Second? Seconded by both Channel and Bernowski. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So anyone want to speak about the comprehensive plan? Thank you. Mr. Butler?
It's me again.
I know.
Is there any other rules I should know about? Does my arrest, would that fall under the no bail laws? I just want to, this gentleman, the lawyer, left. I was hoping he'd stay just in case I needed him, but
Oh,
okay.
He does plan, he does
All right.
land.
Are there any
use and stuff.
words or phrases I can't use? I mean, I
Well,
just
I'd
want to
like
make
you-
sure
well,
I'm
I'd like you
in
to be
compliance
respectful.
with the
Be
rules.
respectful and don't,
Yeah, exactly.
don't use foul language.
And that's the point, which I never did.
I
I'm
didn't
more intelligent than
think
that.
you would, sir.
Okay, so I actually read through the draft comprehensive plan. I'm one of those really annoying bosses who, when people make careless mistakes, I pick up on them immediately. So I got a kick out of this one. Right at the very introduction of the comprehensive plan, second sentence, it says, "The prior Town of Carmel comprehensive plan was adopted in October 2000 and was itself an update to a previous plan for the town prepared in the 1980s, 19080, 19,080. It's kind of a Star Trek thing. To me, again, as a professional, as a boss, that means someone's really not properly engaged in a project that we're paying for. The other one, kind of cute, third paragraph down, second sentence, it says, locally, comma, the town of Putnam County Bikeway has been extended through the town, locally, the Town of Putnam County Bikeway. I don't know what that is. Anyway. In the second paragraph, and now we're just into the content, there's a statement, a sentence that says in the middle, the new millennium has seen a shift to the experience economy. Younger consumers seek experience rather than goods. Material goods are simply not as valued. Where the heck did that come from? I mean, seriously. Someone just make that up and put it in this report? I mean, seriously, what is that? It doesn't even make any sense, and why is it here? Anyway, almost done. I know I'm limited. This is probably the most important sentences in this entire document. It's under Section B, Comprehensive Plan Process. It says, I think there was a reference to it before, a comprehensive plan is not required in New York. But when one is adopted by the town board, the town zoning laws must be in accordance with the goals and objectives laid out in the comprehensive plan. This document, therefore, is probably the most important one that this town board and the town itself will have ever. Because if it's wrong, if the zoning laws are wrong, then we're in trouble right from the get-go. One last comment. In that vein, sort of, you put the zoning laws in effect, you gotta follow them. In one of the objectives, the housing objectives, objective 3.4, it says, consider commissioning a housing needs study for the town to determine where gaps in housing type and price points may exist. And here's the key wording, and assess whether a mandatory inclusionary housing policy for large residential projects would be beneficial to the town. Whenever I hear see the word mandatory, and it's sort of like, you gotta do it, this is the progressive politics that underlies this entire document. It's there, it's throughout it. And I guess as the additional public hearings go on, we'll be able to point some more out.
Thank you for your comments. Mike Bank? Oh, that's Borelli? That's how you write Borelli? You're scribbling.
Basically, the same statements as previously stated at the last public hearing. Make sure that the public hearing is not closed and is kept open for several months. Second, I wanted to see the changes, the additions and changes and deletions from the last comprehensive plan in different type of print. And want to get one more time, to expect someone to respond to you in 3 minutes when there's nobody here is highly insulting to a taxpayer that pays a hell of a lot of money in taxes.
Thank you for your comment. Aaron Lee Crowley.
Erin, Town of Carmel. So firstly, I'd like to note that this public hearing has to do with the master plan or the comprehensive plan, and it saddens me to see that yet again, Chairwoman Susie McDonough isn't present. As she is the chairwoman of this project, her frequent absences haven't gone unnoticed by the public, and I wonder how it affects the movement of this project. Just to echo former Councilman Barilli, respectfully, I'm asking that this public hearing be kept open for more residents to have the opportunity to weigh in, as there's a lot to absorb here. I don't know that most people are aware of this or have had the opportunity to read over the backup that was provided about 10 days ago. August is a month where many of the residents are away with their families, and I think that it's only fair to give them the opportunity to voice any concerns that they may have on these very serious changes. We have many projects that are going on that are yet to be completed. Swan Cove, Airport Park, Sycamore, or even the enforcement with our current code. It's concerning that we're biting off more than we can chew, perhaps. Do we have projected timeframes, budgets, and money set aside to see these projects come to fruition?
That's your question?
That is.
I'm not sure that we have enough money for all the projects that are due. We have a lot more than this. We have dams
Those were just some-
and
those are
water
some examples.
systems and sewer plants. Yeah.
So are we proposing new projects that we don't have?
Well, the master plan isn't a project. The master plan is a
It's a
plan.
comprehensive.
Yeah.
But we have many other projects and things going on that we currently haven't finished.
There's a great many things that aren't finished. Yes.
Do we have the budget and the money is to finish them?
But we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure that we have the money to finish all of these projects that need to be done. Mr. Larry Zach?
Hello, I'm Larry Zaks. I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce. I've been here 55 years, 60 years. As a local business person, a realtor, I own a lot of property here. Make a long story short, thank you. This was an exciting meeting. Actually, I'll go home and sleep and laugh instead of being pissed off and uptight. So, make a long story short, thank you. One of the best things that Bonnie said is this is a dream board. This is an open palette. Let's have some points and some goals that we can try to hit. That's all this master plan is. We spent many meetings brainstorming what would be good. Mr. Butler said, what does an experience economy mean? It means that 30-year-olds are not buying homes and second cars and accumulating stuff. They're not.
Right.
That's our generation. But we're not going to be here very long. So we need an experience economy. We need a dynamic shift in our economic vitality if we're going to be relevant 10 or 20 years down the road. That's what it means. So that's where all this planning came from. The second thing is we know if we're going to have a walkable experience economy, people, who rode their bike here? Who walked? Nobody walks. We're in a rural area. If you build downtown, if those people have cars, they will need to park. If you have cafes, they'll need to park. This will all be needed. One of the wonderful things that came up is people will need more than 3 minutes. Maybe they need to do written comments. Second thing, having read this damn thing for 10 or 20 hours, it's extremely well written, but it's extremely complicated. The summary would be wonderful. Some of the basic points as to adjusting the zoning. Oh, 3 acre to 1 acre, it's going to be overrode. We have so much water, so much unbuildable land, so many people that want rural. I like rural. I don't like cities. It will not be overdeveloped. The problem is people that want to build, it takes so long to get anything done. We have a problem. And we also are in a very high tax area, which is why commercial development is critical. It's why parking is critical. Because in a study that I was just handed, people will drive up. If they cannot park or see parking, they drive away and they take their money. And we lose that establishment. We lose the sales tax. They lose their employees. It's a chain reaction. The fact is, every dollar spent in a town circulates 10 times. And that supports all of our people. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Bonnie, do you want to hit on that point that he just said about the ruralness?
The ruralness,
Yeah, so the 3 acre, that's still
that's
in
still there.
effect.
Yes. Yeah, a good chunk of the town is still 3 acre.
The
Most
chunk
of the town is.
most of the town is still the 3 acre zoning. The smaller piece is where the town already
It's-
has quarter and half acre.
Correct.
Yeah.
And even then, I mean, in theory, we could have put some of the lake communities that are out in the, I will call it the hinterland, not near the hamlets.
Right.
In theory, we could have put them in some neighborhood residential because they're all small lots, but we didn't. Because
But that's
the-
just an important point to make, because I don't want people watching this to think that we're taking where there's 3 acre zoning, and now you're going to put multifamilies and make this, what did one of the gentlemen said, we're urbanizing, we're not urbanizing, the places where you made the zoning less is where it already is.
where it already is. And so it's an opportunity to get some infill housing, what I would say infill, not rezoning large swaths of land to be able to do high-density housing. It's that within these neighborhoods that have been developed, half acre, acre, quarter acre, there are some miscellaneous parcels where maybe you could do some 1 acre. And that was the intent, to maybe put a little more housing, but not at 3 acres, which is, for some, unachievable.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's,
And you can cluster.
I think that would be an important aspect to show maybe in a PowerPoint presentation in terms of like, with that map that was referred to in color, to show the differences, because, I mean, if you just look at it briefly, you're like, wow, they're changing 3 acres down to 1 acre. I mean, obviously, that's not what's happening, but that's the perception from just,
right.
and it needs to be
Right.
clarified, and it needs to be clarified better at
Right.
a public hearing just on the zoning, residential zoning aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that you literally, when you're a large town, and when you basically have 3 zoning districts, 1 residential zoning district, 3 acres, that's really not keyed into the reality of development in your town. And so, again, to support some development, it was intended to be in and around the hamlets where it is already developed, and there might be some miscellaneous parcels that are available. But again, not to go out into the areas that truly are rural. That's not the intent. And so that's why we have an open space residential 3 acre zoning district for all those areas. That's still retained.
Thank you. Any other board members or public comment?
Just one comment. Aaron, I just wanted to just follow up on a point you made. Basically, I think what you said as far as the infrastructure spending, where's the money going to come from? And, I've been on the board for just about 8 months now, and that's the question that sometimes keeps me up at night. And, when I look at the range of projects that are coming up to this town, my back of the envelope, just the next 10 or 15 years, it's well over $100 million. $100 million. And that's not all the projects that aren't scheduled, aren't necessary, kind of the dream projects. So your question is a very good one, which is, where's the money going to come from? And I've talked about this before. This is one of the reasons why the program that Executive Odell kicked off this year with sharing the sales tax was so well received for us. It was a couple of $2 million, but it kind of heralded in a new era of cooperation with the county on infrastructure spending. So, I don't think we have answers to that. We're going to have to figure that out as we go along, but we clearly need partners. So if you know anybody up at the county that can help us out, it's certainly appreciated. That the sales tax, that's, to me, that's like dividend income, right? It's, it's not formulaic, but if the county does well and they meet their goals, it's fantastic if they share that. We're going to put that money to good use. In spite of what people might read on that Facebook thing, we're going to put that money to good use. We've got a lot of projects going on. So thank you for bringing that point up. We need partners. We need other government entities to assist us in that effort.
And we are actively seeking grants constantly. We have a grant writer, and we're trying to do that. Now, one comment I have to make is Councilwoman McDonough wanted me to just tell everyone that she's sick with COVID. That's why she's not here.
This is for baby.
Oh, she's sick with COVID.
You've got probably a $200 or $300 million project he just talked about. You can get infrastructure out of them. You can get, how much in rec fees? $1 million, $2 million? When you have a developer like Toll Brothers or the project he spoke about, there is a tremendous amount of money, jobs, tax, et cetera, that is available. I think we should squeeze it and get what we need in town. Whether that's sidewalks, whether that's rec fees to pay for our parks, whether it's jobs, whether it's housing for our local firemen, policemen, whoever in town needs it. That's one thing. The other thing, you talk $100 million in our school budget's $120 million a year, and our enrollment has shrunk. Is anybody watching this $120 million and trying to reduce it? And reallocate it?
Also is reducing their students.
Pardon?
Also, the Carmel School District also is quite a reduction in their students' population.
So that is something that no one can address, and it's a political hotbed because it's real union money.
Yeah.
So we've got a problem with where our tax money is going, and we also have an opportunity to, as Mr. Baranowski brought out, look for other sources of revenue because they're there.
Yeah.
Business can partner with the town to put in water, roads, sewers, sidewalks, and ask. If redevelopment occurs downtown, these developers may have to put in our sidewalks. They may have to contribute to a parking fund. Someone may have to, we may be able to build a parking structure, half grant money, half developer money, and get what we want.
Yeah,
Thank you.
the things I want. And the sidewalks, if we could get sidewalks around the lake, around South Lake, then that, goes to what Kim Kreco is asking
Just
for.
don't quote me on the 100 million. I don't want to scare anybody
Let's give
out
or
of
take.
town. No, it's actually not that, but it's also not an official number. But the point is the same. As I've said before, the one, major, thing that always occurs to me since I've been on this board is the need for and the cost of infrastructure funding is enormous. And again, this is just the town. This isn't the county or the school district or even the library, You have all of these, public organizations that need funds and need to upgrade. And the money, ultimately, it's got to come from somewhere, right?
So if there are no more, please, Mr. Oh, yes, please come up, Mr. Spain.
My name is Bill Spain. I'm a resident of the town. I'd like to thank the board for tackling this issue. The zoning code has always been a problem in this town. I think that the last major revision was the 82 code, which has been problematical from day one. And Bonnie, yeah, unfortunately, I was only able to obtain a copy of the code this afternoon from Ms. Spofford. I had to read it quick, so I'm not really up to speed on it. My interest, of course, I live on East Lake Boulevard, so my interest is Lake Mahopac, obviously, and I did, of course, note that the provisions specifically exempted lands owned by the state of New York, subject to the jurisdiction of the Office of General Services. I think we have to talk about that a little more. But nevertheless, I think the board did a good job. I was especially impressed with the zone you created in the hamlet. What do you call it? Hamlet mixed, yeah. I think that's a great idea because, unfortunately, as you know, the town grew up for the last couple hundred years, and then zoning was overlaid on all the properties that were previously subdivided and built out. So under the previous 82 code, nothing ever fit. So I think between the new zones and the special use permits provisions in the proposed code, it's a good thing. I would like to speak to the board further at some point about specifically Lake Mahopac. It's my understanding that the board does have jurisdiction to zone aspects, docks, boat slips, et cetera, and we've talked about this. So I look forward to talking about that more with the board. But again, this was a tough project, and I admire the board for doing it, and I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So if there are no further public comments, a motion to hold open the
So moved.
public hearing. Seconded by Baranowski. All in favor?
Aye.
And I don't have any further comments. If the board has comments about
comment.
activities, things they did?
Yeah, I just have an announcement. We have, once again, we're partnering with some private organizations with regard to a back-to-school supply drive, pens, pencils, paper, highlighters, notebooks, et cetera. Collection period is from July 24th to August 21. 3 drop-off locations, Mahopac High School, Monday through Friday, 9 to 2, Carmel Town Hall, Monday through Friday, 10 to 2, and on Sundays from 9 to 2 at the Farmers Market at the Chamber Park. What else? This coming weekend, I want to congratulate the Mahopac VFW for their 75th anniversary. They are an extraordinary group, wonderful, wonderful people who served our country, just wonderful people, everyone from our town, and I've gotten to know them well over the past year or so, and there's no better. So congratulations to them. Happy 75th anniversary.
Very good. I'd like to thank the Carmel Recreation, Jim Gilchrist, Nina, and all the rest of the staff who helped out and put together the Hits on the Hill at Airport Park on the 23rd of July. It was very hot, but it was a great time. We were able to attend, myself and Supervisor Kazari. It was a great turnout for the heat. The band sounded great. Everything went very smoothly, and I just want to thank them for their time and efforts. I'd like to see things like this in our community and getting the community together. So hopefully there'll be new things and bigger and better things to come. And thank you.
I just wanted to thank the residents that did come out to, comment tonight. We do realize it's summer, of course, so thank you.
All right, so motion to close. Adjourn. Yeah. Second? Oh, Frank wanted to table that, so we're not. All right, so all in favor? Aye. Aye. Good night, everybody. Thank you.